want to start with some new revelations about the dishonest tactics that have been employed by members of the Yes campaign. We've mentioned that some of the signatories on the Uluru Statement from the Heart were shocked this week to learn their names had been added to a document calling for an Indigenous voice to Parliament. It's an endorsement that was added without their consent, and Liberal Senator Kerryn Little has stated that some Indigenous elders she has spoken to are, quote, gutted that their most sacred place continues to be used for political and promotional purposes. Joining me now to discuss this and so much more is Research Fellow at Women's Forum Australia, Stephanie Bastiaan, and Sydney lawyer Claire Longley. Stephanie and Claire, welcome to you both and thanks for your time tonight. Stephanie, let me start with you. The purpose of the referendum is supposedly to give Indigenous people a voice. What does a complete disregard for select voices say about the real agenda that's at play here in the Yes campaign?
Look, I think these tactics are precisely the reason why the Yes campaign is losing support. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of detail missing from the government, that there's issues they don't seem to be able to answer, questions that don't seem to be answered. And this is just another example, another tactic by the Yes campaign to try and push it over the line. Women's Forum have been following the Voice campaign since it launched. And I spent some time in Alice Springs and in Darwin in April talking to community advocates and people on the ground. And there's a lot of concern that the Voice isn't going to address the issues that are facing Indigenous people, which includes high rates of violence against women, substance abuse, a broken foster care system that's seeing children allegedly returned home to abusive homes. And while the conversation seems to be around, giving Indigenous people a voice, there's no space in the debate for the Voice on these very issues, the real issues facing Indigenous people. So I think these tactics are precisely the reason why people are losing, why the Yes campaign's losing support quite rapidly.
Claire, numerous signatories of the Uluru Statement are now starting to speak out against the Voice. Do you think Australians will start to buy Labor's line that Indigenous people are overwhelmingly in support of the Voice, or do you think they'll start to see that as more of these elders in particular come out and speak against it? This week we had the Minister for Indigenous Australians making this claim about opponents of the Voice.
Friends, I fear that the No campaign are importing American-style Trump politics to Australia. At the heart is a post-truth approach to politics. Its aim is to polarise people, and its weapon of choice is misinformation.
Trump-style politics. Could, Claire, that have been Linda Burney's deplorables moment?
Look, the Labor government needs to put aside these tactics. They need to focus on empowering the people to make their own choices. We need to stop people driving their own agendas and look at the question of what is best for our country. Every Indigenous person, just as every other individual of our population, will have a variety of opinions. And we need to allow those opinions to be developed with correct information and without alternate agendas from the Labor Party.
Stephanie, it's pretty hard to characterise these Indigenous elders as being the Trump-style divisive activists that Ms Burney seems to be describing. What's your take?
Look, there are a number of Indigenous leaders who are advocating against the Voice for very good reasons. Many of them have spent their entire lives advocating, working in Indigenous communities. Jacinta Price comes to mind as one of them. And to write them off as divisive, I mean, I don't even think Trump is necessarily an insult, but to write them off as some sort of, as divisive leaders because they're not supporting the agenda of the Yes campaign is just wrong and insulting. And I think when you get down to insults and name calling, you've really lost the argument. So shame on them.